The Chargers draft philosophy has changed. With the hire of Joe Hortiz, the Chargers have a purebred football dude as their GM who comes exclusively from the scouting side, and his primary focus is drafting players that fit the new look Chargers, which is physical up front and fast in the back end. And if you're a negative Nancy, you may be thinking, well, if he is only a football dude, then how will the Chargers do with contracts and signing players? They're going to overspend on everybody, and we're already in a terrible cap situation, right? I'm going to talk more about what Joe Hortiz is likely to do with the cap situation probably on Friday, but it's really not that hard to get out of. And also, Ed McGuire was the man doing contracts for the Chargers, which is one of the things that we always praise Tom Telesco for, having great team-friendly contracts for star players. Ed McGuire is the Executive Vice President of Football Administration and Player Finance, and he was the man making those contracts so great. And if you don't believe me, then just take Jim Harbaugh's word for it.
There's nowhere better to do it than with the Los Angeles Chargers. Susie Spanos, Dean Spanos, Ed McGuire, John Spanos, and this great quarterback.
So now let's take a look at Joe Hortiz. And I already made a video going through his drafts and how much success he has had there. A lot of success. But today we're going to be listening to what he has to say about certain drafts and players to try and get a feel of who he would draft for the Chargers. So make sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this content, bro. It helps me out so much. And now let's listen to what Joe Hortiz had to say in 2021 when he was asked about how many Pro Bowlers he has drafted.
It's neat and all that, but it's about winning, and that's what we care about when we pick players that fit the Ravens. In terms of the wideouts, it is a deep class, and last year was a deep class. And I think next year is going to be a deep class. There's more and more players coming out of that position that are developed, and the way the college game's going, I think we're going to continue to see it. It's a unique class because there's versatility in the class. There's a lot of outside guys. There's a ton of slot players. There's value throughout the draft. Our board is stacked throughout. It's not a couple high guys and then a gap. There's a nice column with a lot of names in it. So it's exciting as a scout to look up there and say, hey, if we have an opportunity to take a guy high, it's going to be awesome. There's going to be a guy we like, but there's also going to be an opportunity in those middle rounds, much like there was last year for us, to take players that we like. So, it's nice to go into a draft knowing that throughout the draft there's going to be options for us.
So he first acknowledged that his main goal isn't to draft Pro Bowlers, it's to draft Ravens, which basically means he's drafting players that are going to excel in what the coaches are running. He goes on to talk about the wide receiver class, and this is the year that he drafted Rashod Bateman in the first round over guys in the later rounds like Josh Palmer, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Terrace Marshall. The productivity for Rashod Bateman, it's not really been there, but Joe Hortiz acknowledged that he liked those later round wide receivers and said it's nice to know that there are going to be options for us. Wide receiver was arguably their biggest need that year, and that's probably what pushed them to take a wide receiver in the first.
He's been an outstanding special teamer, which we like in prospects, and so I think having that versatility is something that's very attractive. In terms of Terrace, he's a guy that played outside last year, showed his explosiveness as an outside receiver, and took on a greater role this year in the slot. So he's shown that versatility. He's shown the ability to win at all three levels, and he's got great size and speed. So players that obviously throughout his career has shown the ability to produce from different platforms of an offense.
So special teams, it's a huge positive for the late round prospects, which is not surprising at all. It's interesting to me that he is so positive about Terrace Marshall because he went late in the second round, and he mentioned how he can excel in the slot as well as outside and how explosive he is on the outside. Doesn't that sound very similar to an LSU wide receiver coming out this year? Like Malik Nabers? I mean, something to keep an eye on, because now we know for sure that Joe Hortiz likes Malik Nabers just from looking at what he had to say about previous draft prospects. I mean, like, duh, who doesn't like Malik Nabers? Everyone does. But I also want to make note that the Ravens did not have a second round pick in this draft, so they couldn't draft Terrace Marshall there. But this is where it gets interesting. They liked Rashod Bateman over him in the first round because of how fluid of a route runner he is and his ability to catch the ball in traffic over the middle. I mean, he's basically a quarterback's best friend, a reliable, smart, and fast wide receiver with pretty good size. So does that mean that this year they would take Rome Odunze over Malik Nabers in this year's draft? I mean, it's not out of the question because Daniel Jeremiah ranked Rome Odunze higher than Malik Nabers, and the Ravens drafted a player more similar to Rome Odunze over a player that was more similar to Malik Nabers. I think this is a very interesting tidbit right here. They also drafted Odafe Oweh in the first round this year because they needed a pass rusher pretty badly, and they chose him because of his amazing athleticism, even though he didn't even have a single sack in his final year at Penn State. But there was a big drop off in talent after him, and it was kind of an outlier, them drafting him, because the Ravens typically value production really highly. But I think their need for an edge just forced them into that pick. I mean, he's been getting better as an edge player for the Ravens, but they drafted their two biggest needs with their 2 first-round picks in this year. But he doesn't always draft based on need.
There's linemen that are going to be worthy of that pick, and there's other positions that will be as well. I don't think you can ever have enough offensive linemen, and I think this year proved itself. Always keep that unit strong, and you're going to have a chance to have a good running game and a good passing game and everything. Right. With a shaky offensive line, you're not going to do much of anything. So I'd say I would not be disappointed if we took one, but if there's a better player at a different position, we're going to take it.
Jim Harbaugh's teams are line of scrimmage dominant teams, and Joe Hortiz saying that you can never have too many offensive linemen. Bro, the Chargers could certainly be in play for Joe Alt or Fashanu at number 5 if they don't trade down. And the other name that everyone is talking about at number 5 is Brock Bowers, which as of right now, that is my favorite target. I mean, he would help in the run game and the pass game, and Michigan used multiple tight end sets often. I mean, all of Jim Harbaugh's teams do, but Jim Harbaugh even tried to recruit Brock Bowers coming out of high school to go to Michigan so he could pick him at number 5 and get a strong point of attack, physical, explosive tight end with great ball skills. I mean, that is exactly what Justin Herbert needs, exactly what our running game needs, because he's a great blocking tight end, and fits exactly what Jim Harbaugh does in his brand of football. I mean, that's why he wanted him to go to Michigan coming out of high school, because he fits Jim Harbaugh's scheme really, really well. So just from what we've heard thus far with Joe Hortiz, it sounds like he could like Rome Odunze over Malik Nabers at wide receiver. It's not confirmed, but we can just take the hints here. He's not going to take O-line out of the question at any pick, no matter where he is on the board. And Brock Bowers probably fits the brand of football more than anyone at number 5. And remember, he said he doesn't draft Pro Bowlers, he drafts Ravens. And now he's going to be drafting Chargers under that same Harbaugh brand of football. Who fits that the most? It could be Brock Bowers. But what is also very crucial is who is going to give you the best chance at beating the teams in your division. Because this is what Joe Hortiz had to say about that.
We want to win the division. So we got to beat Pittsburgh, we got to beat Cincinnati, we got to beat Cleveland. So we're going to draft players that we feel can beat those guys. Now, what we look for, rugged and tough, really. I mean, especially defensively. We obviously bigger, faster, stronger. That's what you want. But they always don't come in that package. And what you want is a smart, tough, instinctive guy who plays ball aggressively, who gets it, sees things quick, and can really fit in with our guys. We like leaders. Our team's full. We have a team full of leaders. We want guys that are leaders on their college football team, guys that have passion for the game. They just get it, that live and breathe it, and they come in all shapes and sizes. Ideally, you want the bigger, faster ones, but you can take a smaller one if they can play. I mean, Webby's a perfect example of that. He's a small corner, but he gets it, and he plays like a big man out there.
I love to hear that, man. And now you can see why Jim Harbaugh loved this guy so much and gave him the general manager job. Everything that he said about drafting players fits with what Jim Harbaugh would have said. A big key here is also he will take a risk on a smaller player if they can ball and fit that Jim Harbaugh mold. He brought up Ladarius Webb, who was a really good cornerback for the Ravens for a really long time. And one of the knocks on Brock Bowers is that he is an undersized tight end. So Joe Hortiz is not worried about that label at all. And if he thinks that he is the best overall player, then he will be a Charger despite the size concerns. And some other guys not at number 5 in the draft that have size concerns that I think fit that Jim Harbaugh mold. Guys like Jazon Newton, the Illinois defensive tackle. I really like that guy. Chop Robinson, the edge from Penn State, if we go away from Joey Bosa. Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle from Texas. He would be a really nice piece up front in the middle of the defense. Talk about getting interior pressure in the passing game. Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver from Georgia. Look at what Puka Nacua did this past year as a rookie. Ladd McConkey has that same kind of skill set. And then Taj Washington, the wide receiver from USC. I'm a USC fan. Taj Washington, I think he's a really underrated prospect. That is a guy who's got a ton of speed and can make you miss. And now there is a lot more to talk about with Joe Hortiz. I left a lot out of this video, and I think I'm gonna probably make another video tomorrow about a bunch of more interesting nuggets that I was able to find. So let me know if you want that for tomorrow, but also let me know who you guys want as offensive coordinator, because I made a video yesterday about the potential offensive coordinators. Someone brought up Phillip Rivers. A lot of you guys brought up Phillip Rivers. Wouldn't that be awesome?